folks, welcome back to Game Geeks. I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. No singing for you this time. Sorry, I thought I'd spare you that. Today's episode, we are talking about MINDJAMMER, the role-playing game. This is a mighty tome. This is a really big book. It's a very dense book in that there's a lot of material in there. And to be quite honest with you, I don't know that the format in which we do reviews would really effectively be able for me to tell you everything about it unless we did a 5-part series. So what we're going to be doing here, and I'm upfront and apologetic about this is going to be the thumbnail sketch. This is going to be the fast tour of this really well done and interesting Fate game. With MINDJAMMER, it is a Fate core game, sorta. MINDJAMMER originally saw life as part of Star Blazer Adventures, which was Cubicle 7's foray into Fate as a system back when it was principally Spirit of the Century. Now, since then, Fate has evolved considerably through Dresden Files and several other spin-off side products, and most recently into Fate Core, which was this phenomenally successful Kickstarter, which we reviewed a lot of Fate Core material already. MINDJAMMER was a supplement. I don't know if supplement is the right word because it was also a pretty hefty book in and of its own. How about a setting and rules mod, that might be better, for Star Blazer Adventures. Now we see a second life for this setting in a Fate Core product. Now the reason I keep rationalizing it that way is this is a complete book. You do not need the Fate Core rules to run this game. All the rules you need are included in the book, which may be why it's such a hefty tome. So as we go along, I'll be talking about it, but I'm going to assume that you've gone back and rewatched my Fate Core review for some of the details that we'll be talking about, and why wouldn't you? It's fabulous. But for some of the details and the differences that I'm going to point out as we go along. This is a gigantic setting. One of the issues I have with science fiction settings is they're almost always absolutely huge. And I think science fiction settings over fantasy and other sorts of settings really do best with a licensed property. Because let's face it, we all understand what Star Wars is. We all understand what Star Trek is about. Yes, there are variations and differences, and people can point out, well, the Old Republic is nothing like the Legacy era, but yes, it is. And the point is, it's not the differences, but it's the fact that there are comfortable tropes onto which we can hang our hat. Most fantasy is Tolkien-based, so we have a better understanding of what an elf is, what a wizard does, etc. Science fiction tends to be a lot broader. Now, the MINDJAMMER setting itself is about this giant galaxy-spanning semi-benevolent but expansionist civilization that is coming back after having developed some fantastic new technology, discovering old forgotten colony worlds or new worlds that have never been discovered before, with some frighteningly advanced hypertech, and running into other similarly sized groups that may or may not be happy that you've got this giant commonality breathing down their necks. One of the things I love, the author herself, Sarah Newton, and if I can just make a small aside here, I'm developing quite the game crush on Sarah Newton. She has written some of my favorite products that I've sort of rediscovered over the past several years that I didn't know she did. Chronicles of Future Earth, she was heavily involved in the Legends of Anglaire. She's been working on Octung Cthulhu. Like I said, I've sort of got a gamer crush on her. So what she actively tells you here, which I deeply respect, is this idea of don't try to take this in all at once. It's a huge setting, tons of ideas. If you try to do it all at once, you're going to fall apart. Her recommendation, and I respect the heck out of her for this, is pick some corner, decide what kind of stories you and your players want to tell, and develop the scope of the game from there. With that in mind, you can choose which aspects. Do you want to get into political thrillers? Do you want to get into exploration? Do you want to get into rebellion against the evil overlords? All of these are options. So you can choose that, choose the scope of your game, and then develop those into the ideas and issues, which ultimately become aspects for the game itself. One of the things that makes this different during character creation is, one, there are more skills. There are 22 skills to consider for this game. You have the same number of aspects. You have a higher refresh rate, which allows you to have slightly more stunts than you normally would. But you also have an extras budget. Now, this is something that's hinted at the back of Fate Core, but never really talked about in any detail. Here, it details the crap out of it. With the extras budget, you get a lot of, well, specifically another aspect, 2 stunts, and 6 skills with which to develop the outside of your character's life. These could all be sunk into a spaceship. They could deal with your mindscape halo, which is sort of your avatar. It can be how well you influence civilizations. It could be your genotype if you really want to be an alien. It could be your cyberware or wetware. Plenty of options there for you. It then gives you a lot of sample careers. Do you want to play a sciencey character? There you go. There's suggested peak skills, there are suggested aspects, there are some of the extras that you will need, which is really good for simple people like me that have trouble going through all of this and putting it together. It's very well cross-referenced, such that if you really want to be a political mover and shaker, it talks to you about how you can use your extras budget and how your character can be of direct influence in the organizations that you're involved in. And the organizations can be as small as a trading firm, a cult, or as big as the commonality. The detail of the setting itself is exhaustive, at times intimidating, because you're like, well, crap, I got to read through all of this and figure out where I want to be. But again, I point to that very nice section where the author herself said, nah, good luck. You can just pick a corner and go with it. Good advice for, I think, almost any non-licensed science fiction setting. The art inside varies from acceptable to absolutely beautiful. I think it shines the most in the star maps, in the front and back splash covers. Lots of tables for equipment, for ships, etc. It gives you ways to change societies, folks. It even gives you ways of introducing memes that can direct a society or influence its members to think the way that you or your organization wants to. Final thoughts for this game. As I said in the beginning, this is a very large book. It is a very large setting, and there's a lot here. It's a lot to take in, which is part of why it's taken me a while to review this, is simply because I had to sort of read it all and process it before I could summarize it for a review itself, before I realized, you know what, I'm not going to be able to do the whole thing justice, I'm just going to do my best. You could run any science fiction setting in this that you chose to. One of my touchstones for any sci-fi game I read is, could I effectively do Fading Suns in this game? Absolutely. You can do Fading Suns in this. It can be a Trek game. Star Wars, I think, is a bit more of a push, just simply because Star Wars has an inherently mystical feel to it that isn't supported by the science fiction-y idea. But if you can ignore some of those facts, absolutely. Buck Rogers, sure, there are enough forgotten worlds out there that rediscover the commonality that you could easily have the fish out of water of Buck Rogers or Farscape for you to choose from. This being a Fate book, you have to like the Fate game, because I wouldn't recommend trying to hack this apart to put into another system, simply because the rules and the setting are so elegantly fit together that I think it would be almost impossible to do surgery on this and have it come out to be a cohesive product. So, an excellent science fiction game. MINDJAMMER has a good promise to it, and the promise of future supplements that will further expand the setting and options for your characters. On a more personal note, we want to tell our viewers and the people who've supported us with the HD drive, thank you very much. The HD sponsorship drive is nearing an end. We hope to be in HD for you very soon. So what we ask is that please note the credit roll at the end. Make sure that if you have sponsored, your name is there and that it is spelled correctly. And we look forward to seeing you soon, or rather for you to be seeing me soon in HD. Because, let's face it, this is the face of a 42-year-old man. This is just going to keep getting better and better looking. So you, the viewer, are lucky that you've got this to look forward to in HD in the near future. This is the moneymaker, ladies and gentlemen. For Game Geeks, I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. For myself and Rob Mattison, good day and good gaming.